Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, you are not just preparing to sleep, you are preparing to return to a quieter self, to a deeper knowing, to the soft wonder that lives just beneath your thoughts. As your body settles and your breath begins to slow, something inside you stirs, not with noise but with quiet invitation. This story is not just meant to be heard, it is meant to be felt. It is a journey through the gentle edges of science and the vast inner landscapes of imagination. Here the facts are not sharp. They are softened into metaphor, into rhythm, into meaning that lives in your chest before it ever reaches your mind. You're invited to listen not with urgency, but with curiosity, to let each word unfold like a petal, to remember that the questions you carry do not need quick answers. They need space. Here, each chapter is a breath, each idea a star flickering into view. Together they become a constellation not of certainty but of possibility. You are not being tested, you are being trusted to feel your way through the mystery of what makes us human, what makes us hope, what makes us dream. So rest now. Let the weight of the day slide gently off your shoulders. Let the noise recede. Let the story hold you like water holds a floating leaf. You do not need to do anything. You're already here. And in this quiet space, as neurons fire like stars and feelings bloom like galaxies, you begin to remember. You're not just a listener. You are the dreamer. You are the artist. You are the universe, dreaming itself forward. Welcome home. Let the story begin. You lie still in the quiet dark, and yet behind your closed eyes a spark dances. It is not a flame, not a flash, but something more subtle, more ancient. A shimmer, perhaps, a tremble in the stillness. This is where imagination begins, not in noise, not in language, but in a breath between thoughts, where silence holds space for one small flicker, a pre-thought, a whisper of what could be. You're not dreaming yet, but the dream is already watching you from the distance, waiting for its invitation. There is no need to move. The body softens as the mind begins its journey inward. You feel yourself floating, not upward, not away, but deeper, into the hush behind your eyes. A gentle unraveling. Awareness loosens, and with it the borders of reality begin to blur. This is not sleep. Not yet. It is the twilight of waking, a space between real and imagined. You drift like a leaf over still water, following nothing, resisting nothing. Inside your skull, your brain glows quietly. It hums, as if in prayer. The outer world slips away, and the inner world stretches out before you like a vast field under stars. Even with eyes closed, your visual cortex stirs, not with sight, but with possibility. Shapes that haven't formed, colors that haven't been named. You're seeing with memory, with emotion, with the breath of thought itself. Science calls this the activation of the default mode network, a constellation of brain regions that awaken when you're at rest, when your mind is not busy solving or striving. But to you, it feels like something softer, a returning, a quiet blooming. It is here, in this mental stillness, that imagination first begins to stretch its wings. Thoughts are not yet solid. They pass like shadows across a paper lantern, noticed but not clung to. This is the space before action, before definition, the threshold of thought. You have known this space before, perhaps as a child staring out the window, or lying in the grass watching clouds become animals. Back then, you did not call it anything. It simply was. And here it is again. You breathe, and the air feels thick with something unnamed. Expectation, maybe. Wonder. Or just the possibility of wonder. Your brain begins to reorganize itself gently, without effort. Neuroplasticity, the mind's ability to rewire itself, is not just for trauma or training. It happens here too, in the quiet, in the dark, in the flicker before thought. Like roots growing under the surface, your thoughts begin forming connections. Old memories rise and meet new ideas. Emotions wrap around sensory impressions. The imagined curls into the folds of the real. It is not chaotic, it is symphonic. A low, slow music beneath the noise of daily life. You're not trying to think, and yet your brain is preparing, imagining a future, rewriting the past, mapping what has never been. Athletes do this when they visualize the perfect run. Musicians when they hear the next note before their fingers play it. The brain rehearses reality in silence long before the moment arrives. You too are rehearsing, though you do not yet know what for. A conversation, a decision, a leap of faith, or simply the courage to rest. This flicker in the dark, this whisper of what might be, is your mind's way of planting seeds. Let them be. Let them root in their own time. What is imagination, if not the soul of possibility? It is the breath beneath thought. It is what lifts you into stories, into hopes, into every invention and poem and path not yet walked. And tonight, it begins not with effort, but with surrender, with lying still in the quiet dark and noticing the flicker. In the old myths, fire came from the gods, a gift stolen from the heavens. But perhaps it was always here, inside us, lighting slowly as we closed our eyes. A spark that never needed flint, only stillness. The brain, in its soft electric language, speaks to itself. It says, remember, feel, imagine, and you do. You're not inventing exactly. You're discovering what your mind already knows how to do. It paints with memories and movements, with feelings that have no names. A swirl of not quite thoughts, drifting just beneath the surface. You feel safe here, floating, unhurried. There is no task to complete, no insight to chase, only the slow unfolding of your own awareness. You begin to notice the sensations that imagination brings, the weightless hum in your limbs, the cool silver of a color you can't describe, the way your breath curves inward as if following a spiral. And just like that, you are somewhere else, not entirely in this room, not entirely in a dream, but suspended between. This is the prelude to dreaming, a gentle rehearsal, a soft opening of the curtain. Your body knows rest, your mind knows wonder. Together they begin to write the first lines of a story only you can know, a story that may never be told in words, a story that lives in images and rhythms and sensations. You're not passive here, you're not an audience, you are a participant in your own becoming. Every flicker is an invitation, every shimmer is a doorway. Even now you can feel your mind wandering towards something, a memory perhaps, or a question you did not know you were asking. This is the sacred quiet before the world returns, and it is where imagination writes its first lines. You remember something you did not realize you forgot, a laugh, a place, a sound. Not clearly, but enough for the flicker to grow. The borders of time soften. You're not in this moment exactly. You're in many, past, future, imagined, remembered. The brain does not mark these divisions clearly. It lets them flow into each other. This is not confusion. This is creativity. Let it happen. Let the soft flicker guide you. You are safe. You are whole. And you are more than you appear. Because inside you is a mind that dreams itself awake, even before sleep comes. You float. Thought returns in gentle tides. There is no rush, no goal, only the quiet blooming of what you already carry. Imagination does not impose, it invites. So you accept the invitation. You breathe, you drift, and you allow yourself to begin the journey inward. There, in that journey, you sense something forming, a shape behind the curtain, a thought not quite born. This is the beginning. This is the first page. And though you do not know it yet, your next chapter waits just beyond that flicker. And though you do not know it yet, your next chapter waits just beyond that flicker. And now it arrives, softly, as if it had always been waiting for you. The shape behind the curtain becomes a reflection, not sharp, not flat, but curved and glimmering. A mirror, yes, but not one that simply repeats. A mirror that bends, that stretches and folds what it shows you until it feels like truth, even when it's only suggestion. You gaze inward and find something that was never quite yours and yet entirely familiar. Imagination is not just a mirror. It bends light, curves truth, refracts memory into new shapes. You picture the face of someone long gone, and your body believes it is real. Your heart stirs, your skin warms or shivers. The neurons in your brain fire as if that person is in front of you now. The brain cannot always tell the difference between what is imagined and what is experienced. And maybe that's the point, because what you feel becomes more powerful than what you see. This is the magic of the mind. Suggestion becomes sensation. A shadow becomes a shape. A breeze becomes a memory. You're walking through fog, and yet your body prepares for something, because it thinks it sees, or remembers, or fears, or hopes. The brain, ever responsive, fills in the blanks with stories. It does this not by accident, but by design. Your mind is not a recorder, it is a composer. Each moment of perception is filtered through a symphony of expectation, memory, emotion, and attention. You think you see what's there, but you really see what your brain predicts. That is the mirror bending reality to meet your mind. Consider the way your body tightens when you imagine falling. You are not falling. You are lying in bed, still and safe, and yet the thought alone pulls gravity into your limbs. Your stomach lifts, your breath shortens. This is the vestibular system responding to an image, no motion required. Or think of the way tears rise when you picture a farewell, even if it never happened. The amygdala, the brain's emotional lighthouse, lights up from the imagined, just as it would from the real. You are in this moment suspended in a space where imagination paints over perception, and it feels real because the brain makes it real. Sensory cortices activate, muscles prepare, hormones shift, even the heart responds, not from what is, but from what might be. Your mind becomes a stage and suggestion becomes the set. You walk through imagined forests. You hear voices in the wind that aren't there, and you believe, not with logic, but with sensation. It is not hallucination, it is creation. It is what makes empathy possible, what makes art meaningful, what lets you grieve someone who is gone or love someone you've not yet met. This is not weakness, it is deep design. The brain builds meaning from fragments, from signals, from possibility. And in this act of meaning-making, you reshape the world around you. Neuroscience calls this predictive processing. The idea that the brain is not waiting for reality, it is predicting it moment by moment and adjusting only when those predictions fall short. The eyes send signals, yes, but the brain is already guessing what those signals should be, and when what's imagined matches what's seen, it feels seamless. When they clash, you notice. But most of the time, your brain's guesses are close enough. You fill in gaps, you imagine the rest of the hallway, the other half of the face, the end of a sentence, and so you live in a world that is part real, part rendered by your own mind. And because imagination shapes what you perceive, it also shapes how you feel. A dimly lit street feels safer if you imagine laughter around the corner. A neutral face looks kinder if you remember someone you trust. You don't just interpret the world, you co-create it, moment by moment. This is why a story can change your mood, why music can change your memory, why a single scent can bring back a whole year. The senses are not portals, they are palettes, and your imagination, the unseen painter. Close your eyes, imagine your favorite place, not just the sight, but the sounds, the air, the feeling underfoot. Let it rise in you, and now notice. Your breath slows, your shoulders soften, the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of rest and calm, responds just from thought, just from a mirror that reflects not what is, but what is wanted. This is not trickery. This is biology, and it is powerful. Even athletes know it. They visualize their movements before they take them, and the brain rehearses the action almost identically to doing it. Motor cortices light up, pathways strengthen. Imagination is not rehearsal. It is a form of practice. It prepares the body by preparing the mind. But it works both ways. The imagined fear can tighten the chest. The imagined failure can still the hands. Anxiety can rise from what never happened, because the mirror of the mind does not wait for the real to respond. It bends forward. It reflects the possible. And so, here you are, drifting through a landscape built by your own suggestion. The edges blur, light bends. What was memory becomes hope. What was fear becomes story. You walk through it as though it were true, because in many ways it is. To the brain, imagined experience lays down paths almost indistinguishable from the physical world. This is the heart of neuroplasticity. The brain adapts not only to what happens, but to what it believes is happening. The synapses fire, the circuits strengthen, and reality, your reality, begins to tilt. Even pain, that most real of sensations, can be softened or sharpened by thought. Studies show that imagining relief can reduce pain. Imagining danger can increase it. The mirror does not lie. It simply reflects what the brain believes, and this reflection reaches far, into your decisions, into your moods, into how you remember the past and imagine the future. You're not recalling facts. You are reassembling them every time. You're not seeing a moment, you are building it from bits of light and longing. Even dreams follow this rule. You see people you've never met, in places that don't exist, and it all feels real. Because reality is not about accuracy. It is about coherence, and imagination provides that glue, the story that makes the fragments hold together. Tonight, your mind moves through these fragments. It plays with them, tests them, wraps them around your senses until they feel warm and alive. This is not escape. It is exploration. It is what allows you to wonder, to hope, to find meaning in patterns where none is required. The brain loves patterns, even faces in clouds, even voices in wind. Pareidolia, they call it. But to you, it feels like something deeper, a sense that the world is always speaking, that your mind knows how to listen. So listen. Not for truth, but for possibility. Let the mirror bend. Let the shapes shimmer. Let your body respond as if it were real, because in a way it is. Realness is not about touch. It is about what moves you. A memory, imagined often enough, becomes part of your emotional truth. A future, rehearsed vividly, can guide your present. This is the quiet power of the bending mirror. Not to deceive, but to reveal what you are already holding. You're not the reflection. You're the light that shapes it. The mind projects, the body responds, and together they create something worth believing. So now, in this quiet place, you allow the mirror to show you things, not because they are true, but because they are meaningful. You drift through scenes, some remembered, some invented, and you let them touch your heart, not to hold them, just to feel. And slowly you understand. Imagination is not the opposite of reality. It is part of how reality is made. You're not escaping life, you're shaping your way through it. With stories, with symbols, with a mirror that moves. You turn slightly inward now, not to find answers, but to notice the way you are affected. A sound imagined can soothe. A word remembered can guide. A vision dreamed can become your next step. You let the mirror soften. You feel the world not just around you, but within you. And though your eyes remain closed, you are seeing clearly, with your own inner light. The world outside waits. But here, within this bending mirror, you are already somewhere else, somewhere both familiar and new. a place built not by sight, but by sensation. And as the shapes continue to shift, you begin to wonder, if this much can be created within, what else might be possible just beyond the edge of knowing? You linger in that space just beyond knowing, where the world has melted into sensations and suggestion. The mirror of imagination no longer just bends light. It begins to change you. You're not watching something from afar. You're becoming something new, shaped from the images you allow to unfold in your mind's quiet theatre. There is no curtain, no stage, only neurons, quietly firing like fireflies in the dark. You think a thought, and your body listens. You feel a feeling, and your chemistry shifts. You do not need the world outside you to change for your reality to begin transforming. It already is, right here, inside. In the hush of this inner landscape, you imagine a warm hand in yours, the scent of rain-soaked earth, the flutter of a bird lifting into sky. These are not fantasies. They are real enough to your brain, which whispers to your nervous system, respond. Your breath softens, your pulse slows, muscles relax into the memory of comfort. There is no line between what is imagined and what is felt, not in this moment, because your brain, this soft constellation of cells, does not always know the difference, and it does not need to. Neuroscience tells us something gentle and profound, that neurons, those tiny messengers of thought and memory, light up the same whether you run or imagine running, whether you hold someone close or simply picture their presence. The brain believes what it rehearses. It wires itself around what you give your attention to. This is neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to reshape itself. It does not wait for real experience to begin changing. It changes through thought, through image, through repetition. You're not only shaped by what has happened to you, you're shaped by what you imagine. Close your eyes again and imagine a field of grass bending in the wind. Not just the sight, but the sound of it, the soft rush of air, the tiny clicks of stems brushing together. Your mind brings it to life. A scene forms complete with sensation, even though your feet do not touch the ground, and yet your body responds. The areas of your brain responsible for movement, touch, and perception flicker with activity. You are not there, but you are. You are rehearsing reality, and your brain is listening. Athletes use this power daily. Before a race, they visualize the run, the terrain, the breath, the muscles tightening and releasing. Not because it is pretend, but because the brain treats this visualization as practice. Muscles prime, focus sharpens, nerve signals follow imagined pathways. The performance begins in the mind before it ever reaches the body. The same is true of musicians, of pilots, of dancers. They rehearse not just with motion, but with imagination. And when the real moment arrives, the brain remembers. But this power is not just for performance. It belongs to you, here in this stillness. You imagine kindness, and your body warms. You picture peace, and your heart steadies. You recall love, and it lives again in your chest. These thoughts leave traces, chemicals that shift mood, signals that soothe or energize. They are not ghosts. They are not illusions. They are seeds. Your body prepares for what your mind invites. And so, thought becomes more than reflection. It becomes preparation. What you dream, you begin to believe. What you believe, you begin to embody. And slowly, what you embody becomes how you live. Imagine a challenge you've never faced, a mountain climb, a stage speech, a leap into the unknown. It feels far away, but now you rehearse it, not as fantasy, but as blueprint. You see yourself climbing, speaking, leaping. You feel the nerves, but also the courage. Your brain records it. It strengthens the pathway, like a footpath worn by repeated travel. The next time you move toward that challenge, your body will not feel so unfamiliar with it. It will say, I've been here before. This is not magic. This is memory made through imagination. The brain has no perfect ledger of what is real and what is rehearsed. It only knows what you return to again and again. So the question becomes, what story are you telling yourself? What dreams are you inviting into the architecture of your being? Your past may have shaped parts of you, but your imagined future can shape you too. Every night as you drift into sleep, you hold the pen, you shape the scenery, you choose the music, you soften what was hard, you light the path forward, not always with clarity, but always with presence. Neurons link and unlink like dancers. They move toward what is practiced, and they loosen from what is forgotten. This is your brain's way of learning, but it is also its way of healing. If a memory has left its mark, a new imagined outcome can help you process it. You replay the moment, but change the ending. You picture yourself safe, strong, whole, and over time, the pain softens, the pattern shifts. You are not erasing, you are rewiring, and healing sometimes begins with imagining a life without the wound. Picture a child who dreams of flying. Again and again, she spreads her arms, runs, leaps. She feels the wind. Her feet lift, if only in her mind. But one day, years later, she becomes a pilot, or an astronaut, or simply someone unafraid to rise. Her neurons rehearsed the freedom before it was ever possible. And that dream planted something sturdy, belief. Now, picture yourself, not just as you are, but as you hope to be, calm, capable, connected. That version of you already exists in your mind's rehearsal space. Every time you return to it, you give your brain new instructions, and slowly those instructions become real. You're not locked in, you're not finished, you're still in rehearsal. And in this rehearsal, even sleep is part of the learning. Studies show that what we rehearse before sleep, whether movements, languages, or emotions, continues to strengthen in the night. The brain consolidates, it files, it builds. So this bedtime moment, this quiet visualization, is not wasted. It is where change begins. You breathe slowly now, aware of this gentle power. The dream you believe does not need to be dramatic. It can be soft, a life with more ease, a heart with more grace, a mind with more space to wander gently. These too are worthy dreams, and your brain will respond to them with the same reverence. So you return to your imagined field, or your imagined kindness, or your imagined courage. You feel it fully, not to escape, but to rewire, not to pretend, but to prepare. This is the brain's quiet brilliance. It is always listening, always learning, always reshaping, even in stillness. As you float closer to sleep, you notice how often you've already used this gift, how many challenges you've softened first in your mind, how many moments of joy you've called forth simply by remembering them. You're not waiting for life to happen to you. You're participating even in the dark, even in dreams. And maybe that's why dreaming matters, not only at night, but in how we shape our days. We dream not to forget reality, but to expand it, to offer the brain new material, new ways of being. And in that offering, we give ourselves new futures to step into. So tonight, imagine wisely. Imagine kindly. Imagine not just for fun, but for your own becoming. Because the brain that believes the dream does not distinguish between intention and rehearsal. It begins to build, it begins to rewire, it begins to bloom. And as you lie still, drifting deeper, you wonder, not with urgency, but with wonder. What else might you dream into being tomorrow? Each imagined thought carves a trail in your brain, a path through the forest of possibility. These trails are not fixed. They grow with use, fade with neglect, transform with intention. You walk these mental paths again and again until they become roads, then highways. Neuroplasticity means nothing in you is final, and that is the magic. You can always imagine your way to somewhere new. You drift now gently into that inner terrain. The forest within your mind is alive with quiet motion, branches of memory, roots of emotion, leaves shimmering with sensation. You walk softly, not on ground, but on networks of thought. Every step you take is a thought repeated, a memory rehearsed. Beneath your feet, the paths shimmer faintly, as if responding to your presence. These are not the rigid roads of certainty. They bend, they wind, they adapt. At first, it's like wandering through mist. Familiar shapes rise in the fog, faces, voices, half-remembered dreams. You do not try to hold them, you only notice. You follow a scent, a sound, a light filtering through imagined trees. This forest is not static. With each breath, it rearranges. A path you walked 1,000 times may vanish. Another may appear where you least expect it. That is neuroplasticity, the brain's quiet ability to reshape itself, not with force, but with rhythm, not with pressure, but with repetition. What you imagine, again and again, begins to lay tracks, not on the outside world, but deep within your neural landscape. Synapses stretch, reconnect. Pathways once dormant light up. You are changing, not with effort, but with intention. You remember a story someone once told you, how pianists can strengthen finger coordination just by imagining practice. How stroke survivors regain movement by mentally rehearsing the motion they cannot yet perform. These are not miracles. They are the work of a forest that never stops growing. Every time you imagine kindness, the path of compassion becomes easier to walk. Every time you picture courage, your fear loosens just a little more. The forest listens. The forest learns. Even in the quietest corners of your mind, growth is happening. Slowly, gently, persistently. You think of a habit you once built. Not suddenly, but step by step. Maybe it was a new way of speaking, or moving, or reacting. At first, it felt unnatural. The path was overgrown. Each step took effort, but repetition carved it deeper. One day, you realized you were no longer choosing it. It was choosing you. The trail had become a road. This is the secret of the mind. Whatever you walk, you widen. Whatever you feed, you strengthen. Whether with fear or with faith, your footsteps matter. The forest takes no sides. It responds to practice, to emotion, to the energy you return to again and again. You pause now at a fork in the path. One trail feels well worn, the one you've walked in moments of worry, self-doubt, resistance. The other feels newer, narrower, untested. It is lined with gentler thoughts, softer language, possibility. You do not need to choose tonight, but you notice, and that noticing is itself a step. Somewhere deep in your brain, new dendrites begin to reach, like tiny branches seeking light. Synapses whisper across gaps. Activity sparks, invisible but real. It is not imagination alone. It is structure, biology, change. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that guides decision and awareness, gently collaborates with older regions, the limbic system, the hippocampus. This forest is both ancient and evolving, a place of feeling, of memory, of focus. These parts of you speak in electrical pulses, in rhythms beyond words, but what they build is shaped by what you repeatedly imagine, and it is not only what you rehearse, it is how you feel while rehearsing it. A joyful thought leaves a different imprint than one drenched in fear. Emotion is fertilizer. It enriches the soil of your mind's forest. That is why the thoughts you feel deeply take root the fastest. You think now of times you changed not because you were told to, but because something shifted inside. A gentle realization, a new image that stayed with you, a story that planted itself like a seed, not loud, not forceful, but persistent. And in time, that seed sprouted into a new way of seeing. You pass a clearing now, lit by the soft glow of metaphor. Here, science sits like a tree with open arms. You touch its bark and feel the facts alive in it. Neuroplasticity is not a theory. It is the living pulse of your capacity to grow. It says that even well-worn paths can be overgrown. Even the deepest ruts can fade and new ones can form. Not because you force them, but because you choose to walk them again and again. Your footsteps tonight are thoughts, and thoughts are not nothing. They are electrochemical signals carried on networks made of experience. When you imagine yourself safe, your brain sends signals of calm. When you imagine yourself learning, your brain prepares to adapt. And when you imagine yourself whole, the forest answers with pathways that begin to mirror wholeness. Not all trails are built equally. Some were laid down in childhood, others in moments of pain. But neuroplasticity does not require perfection, only attention. It gives you the gift of response, of renewal. You walk now through a patch of the forest that once held fear. You see it differently this time, not because the forest has changed, but because you have. You imagined courage here once, and now that path is a little easier to walk. This is how healing begins, not by erasing what was, but by building something new beside it, a parallel trail, a softer step. You breathe, you pause, you notice how far you've come, even within a single night of imagining, and you feel a quiet strength rising, not loud, not boastful, but rooted. Because even in sleep your brain is building. Even in rest the paths are shifting. You're not lost, you're exploring. You're not broken, you are blooming. You're not fixed in place, you are fluid, like thought itself. So tonight, if you return to an old thought, do not fear it. Just notice. Then gently place your foot on a different trail. Even once. That is enough to begin a change. As you continue your slow walk, you realize you are both the traveler and the trail maker. You carry the seeds. You choose what to water. The forest is forgiving. It forgets quickly what is no longer walked. It remembers what is loved. And so, with love, you walk. With wonder, you watch. And with softness, you change. There is no final destination, only a journey inward, paved by each imagined thought. And somewhere ahead, in a deeper grove still hidden, waits a part of you that understands not just how the forest changes, but why you return to it at all. And that part stirs now, ready to meet you. You are still walking the forest trails of your mind. The moss beneath your feet is soft, familiar now. But as the air shifts and light drips in from new angles, something deeper stirs, not just in thought, but in sensation. You feel it in your breath, in the way your shoulders settle just a little more easily. The forest does not only change with your mind, it changes with your body too. And now you begin to notice how the two are not separate. Your thoughts echo through your limbs. Your body listens when the mind speaks. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of a great field. Somewhere across it is something you long for. You imagine yourself leaping forward, and without even realizing it, your leg muscles tense, your posture adjusts, your heart beats faster. No movement has occurred, but the rehearsal has begun. Your body is not waiting for reality. It is responding to imagination. This is not metaphor, it is biology. Your brain, rich in ancient instincts, cannot always distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. The same neural networks that fire when you act also light up when you vividly picture the act. To the body, thought becomes a rehearsal, and rehearsal becomes preparation. This is how visualization trains not just athletes, but hearts and lungs and immune systems. This is how a thought can move a body. You imagine warmth, and your blood vessels dilate. You imagine a loved one, and your oxytocin rises. You imagine fear, and your adrenaline trickles in. You don't always need to move yourself. The body follows images. It listens for intention. Perhaps you've already experienced this. The flutter in your chest before a difficult conversation. The calm that comes with picturing a place of peace. The subtle way your jaw softens when you imagine being safe. These are not tricks. These are truths. windows into the conversation happening constantly between mind and muscle. Let yourself wander into a memory now, any memory. Notice how your body responds. A tightening here, a warmth there, maybe a shiver, maybe a sigh. Your memories live not just in your mind, but in your flesh. They are stored in the language of posture and pulse, breath and heartbeat, and imagination speaks that same language. This is why visualization is used in healing. Patients recovering from injury sometimes imagine moving a limb they cannot yet control, and slowly the neural connections strengthen, the brain begins to believe, and eventually the body follows. Not always, not magically, but measurably. Belief becomes biology. It is not that imagination overrides the body, it partners with it. It prepares, it invites. Athletes see the finish line in their mind long before their feet touch the track. Musicians hear the melody within before a single note is played. Public speakers walk through the silence before applause with their eyes closed, breathing into confidence. The mind practices and the body learns, and not just for greatness, but for peace too. You can visualize calm. You can imagine a still lake, a soft rain, a hand held in yours, and something in you will shift. Cortisol will lower, muscles will unclench, your immune system will hum quietly, more balanced now. Even your digestion may ease, all because your inner storyteller whispered a kinder tale. You are the storyteller. You always have been. You tell stories about what is happening, what might happen, what once happened, and your body listens, adjusts, prepares, even when you are unaware. Imagine waking tomorrow and saying to yourself, I am safe, I am capable, I am worthy of peace. Even if you do not fully believe it, your body begins to lean in. It relaxes just a bit. Breath deepens, shoulders drop, muscles loosen their grip. This is the wisdom of rehearsal, to act as if, until the story becomes familiar, until it feels like home. Let's go back again. You're still walking that forest path, but now you come upon a clearing. You picture yourself dancing there, arms outstretched, face lifted to the canopy. As you picture it, something inside begins to sway. Maybe only a toe twitches. Maybe your breath lifts. Maybe you smile. The movement begins in thought but continues in muscle. And if you were to do it again tomorrow, and again the next day, it would become a pattern. A groove worn gently into the body's memory. This is neuroplasticity again, but now not just in the brain structure, but in the body's choreography. Repeated imagined movements become motor rehearsals. Imagined peace becomes emotional baseline. What you do repeatedly, even in thought, becomes part of your physical being. This is why stress, especially imagined stress, takes such a toll. When you worry about a meeting, or rehearse a failure in your mind, your body prepares for danger. Heart rate increases, breath shortens, muscles coil. Even if the danger never arrives, the toll has already begun. But the reverse is also true. Picture peace, picture success, picture comfort. And your body begins to believe that too. The body is not foolish. It is faithful. Faithful to the images you feed it. Faithful to the stories you repeat. And so tonight, be gentle with your inner narrative. Speak kindly to yourself, not just with words, but with pictures. Imagine your body soft, safe, held. Imagine yourself walking through a place that makes you feel whole. Imagine being loved, and watch how your breath changes. Watch how your skin warms. Watch how sleep begins to wrap itself around you like a soft shawl. This is the biology of belief, the gentle art of shaping your own state. You don't need to imagine grand things. Even a simple image, a cup of tea, a flickering candle, a sunlit leaf, can change your chemistry, can slow your heart, can soften your edges. It is not about pretending, it is about priming. You are priming your body for the experience you wish to create. This is the doorway between intention and reality. You think, and the body listens. You visualize, and the body prepares. Like a musician tuning before the first note, You ready yourself, and slowly, softly, you shift. This does not mean you can think away every wound or imagine yourself out of hardship. The body has its own laws, its own timelines, but it does mean that your relationship with the body is participatory. Imagination can be part of the healing, part of the strength, part of the hope. Even pain changes with perception. Studies show that imagining coolness can reduce the felt intensity of a burn, that visualizing open air can reduce claustrophobia, that picturing safety can reduce panic. This is real. This is science, and it is happening in you whether you notice it or not. So tonight, notice. Notice the way your breath follows thought, the way your muscles speak back to memory, the way a simple image, drawn gently in your mind's eye, can calm the whole system. You're not only thinking, you are shaping. You're not only imagining, you are preparing. You're not only remembering, you are rehearsing. And slowly, as your body begins to quiet, your thoughts begin to slow. The rehearsal ends not with applause, but with rest. Your cells hum with readiness. Your breath deepens, and you drift. Not because everything is solved, but because you've reminded yourself that you're not powerless. You're a participant, a co-creator, a gentle conductor of your own biology. So you imagine peace, and your body listens. You imagine strength, and your body gathers. You imagine love, and your heart responds. And just before sleep finds you, you wonder, not with urgency, but with gentle awe, what else your body might learn to believe if only your thoughts invited it to. You lie in the soft quiet, the weight of the blanket like a warm hush across your chest. Your body remembers stillness, but your mind hums with echoes, not of sound, but of sensation, feelings that have not arrived, futures that have not unfolded, but stir within you as if they already live here. The echo of what hasn't happened moves through you gently, like wind in a room with no windows. You feel it without knowing from where it comes. This is the mind's strange gift, to feel in advance, to prepare for what might be. Joy imagine lifts your cheeks before the smile forms. Fear imagine tenses your shoulders before any threat appears. You live in moments that haven't happened, and yet they change you now. The future is not just a line ahead, it is a field around you. Your thoughts throw small stones into it, and ripples return. Not from what is, but from what could be. And these ripples shape the ground beneath your feet. They sway your balance, shift your stance, change the way you move through today. Close your eyes a little more. Let the present blur, not to lose it, but to feel what else it holds, what else it touches. You are not escaping, you are expanding. Your mind, like a quiet tide, rolls into tomorrow and pulls back again, carrying sand from shores that haven't yet seen your footprints, and it matters. What you imagine matters. Picture a moment of kindness coming your way, a voice, a gesture, a door opening where you thought there was only wall. Your body responds, your breath deepens, muscles soften. You become, for a few seconds, the version of yourself that exists in that future, hopeful, open, warmed by the thought of light. Now imagine a fear, not because you want to dwell in it, but to see its shape. A shadow passes through you, heart quickens, jaws tighten, your shoulders brace as if to catch a blow. Nothing has touched you, and yet everything has changed. You haven't moved, but inside you have travelled. And this is what it means to live with a forecasting brain. You do not just respond to the world, you anticipate it. And in that anticipation, you rehearse your response. Every imagined future becomes a rehearsal space, a quiet stage where your feelings practice their lines. Science calls it simulation, cognitive projection, mental time travel. But tonight, it feels simpler than that. It feels like listening to whispers from a future version of yourself, the one who has already walked through that door, or that storm, or that silence, the one who knows, not because they remember, but because they have imagined well. So much of your brain is built for this. The prefrontal cortex reaches forward in time, not to control but to prepare. The limbic system colours the imagined with real emotion. Neural pathways light up not just when things happen, but when you expect them to. Your mind is a rehearsal hall, and the body listens to the music, whether the audience is real or not. You picture success, and your brain lays scaffolding for confidence. You picture failure, and your pulse adjusts, bracing for a fall. Your imagination is not decoration, it is blueprint. That is why fear can become a loop. Not because it is irrational, but because it is effective. The brain thinks it's helping. It runs the worst-case scenario again and again, trying to find a way out. But the more the pattern repeats, the deeper the grooves become, like water wearing down stone, like footsteps in soft soil. The brain builds paths with practice, and fear practiced is fear embodied. But here is the gentler truth. Hope can also be practiced. You can imagine peace, not as a fantasy, but as a warm-up, a kind of mental stretching before the day begins. You can imagine forgiveness, connection, courage, not to pretend, but to prepare. Athletes visualize the race before they run it. Musicians imagine the song before they play. You too can rehearse moments of calm. You can rehearse love. You can rehearse the way you will meet your own pain with grace, and your body will respond. Because to the brain, imagined experience is experience. The same neural patterns light up. The same chemical messengers whisper across synapses. The same rhythms echo through your nervous system. You become, in those moments, a living echo of your own imagined future. And yet, this is not about control. Not every imagined thing will come true. Life is more fluid than that, more wild. This is about readiness. It is about agency, about knowing that what you feed your thoughts becomes the soil in which your next choices grow. Picture a garden, not one you see, but one you tend inside. Each thought a seed, each feeling, water. The sun is your belief. And though the harvest is not guaranteed, what you plant still matters. You don't need to fear fear. It is a messenger. But you also don't need to give it the only microphone. Tonight you notice the stories you tell yourself. About tomorrow, about what may come. You're not wrong to worry. You're not foolish to hope. You're simply alive, equipped with a mind that reaches forward, gathering light and shadow both. So you learn to listen with softness, to imagine not only what could go wrong, but what could unfold with beauty, with ease, with delight. You picture a future where you are okay, and already some part of you starts to move as if it believes. This is not denial, this is design. You shape your responses in advance. You rehearse courage before it is needed. You build bridges to places not yet crossed, and your body, your gentle body, begins to believe the path is real. You may never walk that exact path, but something in you will have been strengthened for having imagined it. You lie still, but your heart is travelling. Your breath is sending scouts into tomorrow, looking for weather, looking for warmth. And they return not with certainty, but with echoes. Echoes of love, of challenge, of change. You feel them all, and you do not have to choose just one. Let them pass through. Let them hum and settle. Let them shape you not into fear, but into readiness. A readiness to love again, to try again, to begin again. Even if nothing goes as you expect, even if everything changes, even if you are afraid, especially then. Because your mind has practiced this, your body remembers, and just before sleep carries you under, you wonder, not with panic, but with peace. What quiet miracles might already be echoing your way? You lie still, and something rises, not from thought, but from beneath it. It comes not as a word or an image, but as warmth behind the eyes, as a tremble in the chest, as the soft ache that wells up for no reason you can name. You have not asked for it, you have not planned it, and yet here it is, emotion, blooming from somewhere deep inside like light from under a closed door. This is where imagination speaks in its oldest language. You don't always picture scenes. You don't always narrate thoughts. Sometimes you simply feel, and the feeling tells a story before the mind catches up. You have cried for futures that haven't come, smiled for reunions that never happened, felt grief for people who still live, and love for people you've never met. These are not accidents. They are signals from imagination, not creating lies, but revealing longings, echoes of what your heart has rehearsed. Emotion does not wait for facts. It does not check the calendar or verify the details. It arrives when something inside you recognizes the shape of possibility. That recognition is enough to stir the pulse, enough to shift the breath, enough to feel real, and in many ways, it is real. Because your body does not know the difference between what is lived and what is vividly imagined. Tears still fall, muscles still tense, hormones still release. The nervous system responds to the inner weather, whether it's forecasted or not. A thought can be soft as a whisper and still cause a storm in the blood. You remember walking through a door you never opened. You remember hearing a voice you never heard aloud. The brain fills in the gaps, the feeling takes shape, and the story settles deep as if it has always been there. You imagine your childhood home, and the scent of its wood comes back, the way the light hit the floor, the way your heart felt safe in that corner of the kitchen. Your body believes the memory, even if it is part truth, part wish. That is the strange gift of imagination. It stitches truth and fiction together into something emotionally whole. And sometimes that wholeness matters more than accuracy. When you prepare for something hard, a goodbye, a test, a loss, you often feel it before it happens. The heart tightens, the breath shortens, your body readies itself for the imagined future. This isn't weakness, this is foresight, a survival mechanism, a kindness built into the design of your mind. You anticipate so you can adapt. You feel early so you can feel less sharply later, and it goes the other way, too. You can laugh at a joke not yet told. You can feel awe at a mountain not yet climbed. You can fall in love with the idea of someone before a single word is spoken. These emotional rehearsals do not make you foolish. They make you alive. Imagination prepares you. Emotion guides you. They are not separate tools. They are the twin engines of your human self. Even in dreams, your emotions follow the imagined story. You wake up with your heart racing from a chase that never occurred. You feel relief from a reunion that only happened in sleep. What you feel is real. The feeling is not pretend, even if the source was imagined. Your brain does not need the outside world to create emotional truth, and this is why visualization works, why athletes rehearse movements in the mind and see their performance improve, why musicians close their eyes and hear the piece before they play, why those in pain imagine healing, and their bodies sometimes respond. The body listens, the body responds, not to logic, but to emotion. Emotion is the command center. It is faster than reason. It is older than language. It has shaped you from birth, responding to the emotional cues of caregivers, the tones of voices, the rhythms of love and fear. You learned the world first through feeling. Even now, as an adult, you make decisions guided more by emotion than you admit. You rationalize after the fact, but the pull of a feeling, a yes or a no, a softening or a tightening, that is what steers the wheel. And imagination, when it joins with emotion, gives that steering wheel a map. You imagine being seen, and the feeling that rises is one of warmth. You imagine being forgotten, and the feeling that stirs is one of cold. These are not idle fantasies. They are tests, the mind running simulations, the heart measuring risk. And in this process, you learn more about yourself. You learn what you hope for, what you fear, what you value, what you grieve. Imagination helps you articulate what the conscious mind cannot yet say. A picture forms in your thoughts. An empty chair, a closed window, a hand reaching out. These are symbols, not sentences. But you know what they mean. You feel what they mean. Sometimes you feel something and only understand it days later. The feeling leads. The mind translates. This is why art moves you. A painting with no story can still make you cry. A piece of music can shake loose a memory. A film can awaken a part of you you didn't know was sleeping. Because emotion responds not to what is explained, but to what is evoked. And imagination is the great evoker. Even in silence it speaks. Even in darkness it paints. You imagine reunion, and your arms ache with the desire to hold. You imagine success, and your spine straightens in pride. You imagine danger, and your pupils widen. None of these are conscious choices. They are the body's agreement with the story you have silently begun to tell. And so, you become both author and character. You feel the future, and in doing so, you help shape it. Because emotions do not merely rise, they ripple, they extend outward, they change posture, tone, behavior. They affect how you speak to others, how you listen, what you dare to try, and often, what you imagine feeling becomes what you eventually feel. You practice joy in your mind, and your face learns to smile again. You imagine forgiveness, and your chest loosens. You picture resilience, and your breath deepens. It is not just positive thinking. It is neural rehearsal, emotional memory, embodied cognition. The whole body participates. And slowly, the feeling you rehearsed becomes the feeling you live. There is no shame in emotion that rises uninvited. No weakness in tears that come from imagined pain. These are reminders that you are deeply human, that your inner world is vivid, that your empathy is alive. You do not need to have lived something for it to affect you, because imagination opens the door, and emotion walks through. Sometimes they arrive in tandem, a thought and a feeling rising together. Other times the feeling comes first, and only later do you trace it back to the story that called it forth. But always there is a link, so you begin to pay attention. Not just to the thoughts, but to the emotions they awaken. You notice the themes that return, the visions that bring you calm, the imagined moments that feel like home. And in this noticing, you learn to guide the mind more gently. You invite the feelings that nourish. You honor the ones that ask to be felt. You allow your imagination to speak, not just in pictures, but in pulses. And in those pulses, you begin to recognize a kind of truth. Not the truth of data or certainty, but the truth of resonance. What feels aligned, what feels alive. You breathe now slowly. You allow the feelings to rise, knowing they will also pass. You give them space. You listen. And as you listen, a new image begins to form, not of a place or a person, but of a self you are still becoming. One who feels fully, one who imagines freely, one who trusts the quiet wisdom of emotion. The heart beats once, then again. You feel it, the beginning of something soft, something whole. And just before sleep pulls you under, you wonder, not with fear, but with deep curiosity, what other truths might be waiting in the emotions you have not yet dared to feel. You wake in the hush before morning, your mind still softened by the tides of sleep. The world is quiet, suspended in a breath not yet exhaled. And within you, something stirs, a faint echo of the self you glimpsed in dream. Not a memory exactly, but a sense, a direction, a possibility waiting to be named. You do not rush to name it. Instead, you let it unfold. Because deep inside, you know, the future doesn't arrive fully formed. It emerges like mist lifting off water, shaped by warmth, motion, light, and most of all, by imagination. What you imagine, you make more real. What you picture, even, faintly, begins to leave footprints in your mind. A bridge where there was once only fog, a step where there was once hesitation. The impossible doesn't begin in reality, it begins in daydream. Somewhere, long before it existed, someone imagined the wheel. the fire harnessed, the ship crossing oceans, the stars not as unreachable lights but as destinations. Every tool, every story, every cure, each began in the soft soil of someone's wondering. A what if, a maybe, a shape drawn in thought before it ever met the hand. And so you lie here, breathing slowly, realizing that dreaming is not idle. It is architecture. Each imagined future is a scaffolding built in the unseen, a sketch drawn in synapse and spark. Your brain rehearses not only motion but meaning, not only pattern but purpose. Neuroscience calls it simulation, but it is more than that. It is belief forming in the folds of the brain. The same way muscles remember movement, your mind remembers the imagined. It begins to act on what hasn't happened yet, as though it already has. This is not fantasy, it is preparation. When a pianist imagines the notes before their fingers touch the keys, their motor cortex lights up. When an athlete sees the finish line in their mind, their body responds with quiet readiness. The mind does not wait for reality to catch up. It begins the becoming before the world gives permission. And so can you. You can imagine a life that fits more gently, a version of yourself that speaks with more kindness, a path that bends toward healing, toward art, toward presence. You don't need to know every detail. You only need to begin the outline, because the brain responds to suggestion, and your body follows what the brain rehearses. This is why it matters what stories you tell yourself, not just about the world, but about your place within it. Are you the one stuck, or the one still shaping? Are you waiting, or are you building quietly in the space between moments? You are always creating. Even when you feel still, your mind is arranging and reassembling, past into future, fear into caution, hope into direction. You can feel this, even now, as your breath lengthens, the small pull towards something you haven't seen, but deeply sense. The science calls it constructive memory. When you recall something, or imagine something, your brain uses many of the same pathways. Memory and imagination are not separate rooms. They are adjoining spaces, with doors that swing both ways. This is why an imagined future can feel so real it brings you comfort, or joy, or fear. And this is also why dreaming carefully matters, because your nervous system listens. Picture a future where you speak more gently to yourself, where your mornings begin with curiosity, not dread, where your work feels meaningful, where your relationships offer refuge, where your creativity flows, not with force, but with ease. You do not have to know how to get there. Just walk in your mind. Let the path become more familiar. Each time you return, the trail strengthens. Each thought makes the road more real. This is neuroplasticity. This is inner cartography. You are allowed to imagine something beautiful, not as escape, but as blueprint. Not to deny the hard things, but to remind yourself that they are not the only things. Imagine what you might build if your dreams were seen as tools. Imagine how the world might soften if more people were taught to dream gently, with care, not just for themselves, but for each other. Because the future isn't only personal, it is collective. The bridges we build in our minds become the bridges we offer others. A shared vision, a whispered possibility, a road that didn't exist until someone dared to walk it in thought. This is how revolutions begin, not with certainty, but with imagination, not with maps, but with questions. What if we could live differently? What if care was the center of all design? What if technology reflected compassion, not just efficiency? These are not idle dreams. These are the sketches of tomorrow, and you, even in your quiet bed, are part of this blueprinting. Your thoughts ripple outward. Your imagined kindness matters. Your hoped-for solutions matter. Because the brain you carry is not just a mirror of what has been. It is a lantern, a tool for seeing through the fog, a compass not fixed to what is, but drawn toward what could be. Even small dreams count. Even the wish to feel a little more whole, a little more rested, a little more connected. These are not small to your nervous system, they are felt deeply, and they guide your choices, your tone, your posture toward the day. Dreaming is not always grand. Sometimes it is simply imagining yourself waking without fear, or going to sleep with softness, or meeting someone's eyes with peace. And still, that too shapes the future. Every artist begins with an image unseen. Every scientist begins with a curiosity unproven. Every healer begins with the belief that pain can be softened. Every child dreams first in play. You carry this lineage. You're not separate from those who dreamed before. You are part of that long line of minds that dared to shape meaning from mystery. So tonight, let yourself return to that quiet space, the one where your breath leads, the one where your thoughts unfold without demand. Notice what flickers into view, an image, a feeling, a question. You do not have to build the future all at once. Just dream it gently. Hold it like a seed. Let it rest in your palm until warmth gathers, and then, when the time is right, plant it. You may not see the full bloom, but someone will. And perhaps they too will close their eyes one day and imagine something kinder, something more whole, something that bends the world softly toward beauty. Because all futures begin this way, not in certainty, but in wonder. And just before your thoughts drift completely into sleep, you wonder, not with urgency, but with quiet, reverence, what futures might already be waiting inside the dreams you haven't dared to dream yet. You rest in the quiet after the dream, the warmth of imagined futures still flickering behind your eyelids. They feel close now, those visions you planted only in thought, like dew waiting to become rain, like whispers waiting to become voice. You don't need to hold them tightly, you only need to trust their shape. A future rehearsed is a future prepared for, and this is where you begin again. Your mind, gently stirring in the stillness, begins to picture something, not far off, not impossible, just the next small step. A door opening, a word spoken, a hand reaching out. You don't do it yet, you imagine it, and your body listens. Something inside you adjusts, like a tuning fork touched by sound. Your nerves begin to vibrate with readiness. The scene is not real, and yet it becomes part of you. This is the secret the body knows but never says aloud. To imagine is not idle. It is training, it is practice, it is rehearsal for reality. When you picture yourself walking into the room with steady breath and lifted shoulders, your mind begins to record that pattern. When you picture your voice rising clear and warm in the face of fear, your nervous system learns the rhythm of courage. And the more often you return to these gentle rehearsals, the less they feel like fiction. They begin to feel familiar, safe, like something you've done before. Because the brain, remarkable and ever adaptive, doesn't always distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically lived. The same neural circuits fire when you visualize as when you act. You think the thought, and your body rehearses the action. You picture the leap, and your muscles tense slightly, ready to spring. You imagine the hug, and your chest softens. You imagine the fall, and your heart stutters. Rehearsal is not passive, it's not pretend, it's prelude. And every time you rehearse not just an event, but an emotional response, calm in chaos, softness in anger, curiosity in confusion, you wire your brain toward that outcome. You're not just preparing for the world, you're shaping your part in it. The imagined self becomes a guide, a trailblazer. You're walking a path just slightly behind who you hope to become, and every rehearsal smooths that path a little more. Olympians know this, musicians know this, surgeons and astronauts and dancers know this. They sit still, breathe deeply, and imagine each move, each beat, each gesture. The brain rehearses, the body remembers, outcomes improve, mistakes lessen, nerves calm. What begins in the mind echoes in the muscle, and what echoes enough becomes embodied. You don't need a stage or a spotlight to practice. You only need attention, a quiet room, a slow breath, a willingness to imagine kindly, to shape your thoughts not around perfection, but possibility. See yourself forgiving. See yourself trying again. See yourself making a mistake and softening instead of shaming. These are not fantasies. These are rehearsals for a life lived more deliberately, and it is not always ease you rehearse. Sometimes it is strength in the face of pain. Sometimes it is calm when fear bubbles up. Sometimes it is presence when you want to run. You imagine these moments not to suffer them twice, but to prepare your response so you're not ruled by instinct alone, so that even in difficulty, you can meet the moment with something deeper than panic. You can meet it with awareness. Your imagined self, the one you see when your eyes are closed, walks slightly ahead of you, showing the way. Not perfect, not fearless, but prepared, rehearsed. A self that has practiced presence, practiced kindness, practiced courage, and that practice matters. Because repetition is how your brain learns. Not just facts, but feelings. Not just tasks, but tendencies. The prefrontal cortex, your planning mind, lights up when you visualize. The motor cortex, your movement map, activates too. Mirror neurons fire, synapses strengthen. The body listens, the self adapts. And slowly, without you forcing anything, change begins. Not always in grand gestures, often in subtler ways, a slower reaction, a deeper breath, a slightly different choice. You imagine making eye contact. Later, you do. You imagine saying no without guilt. Later, it comes more easily. You imagine kindness in a moment of tension. And later, your voice softens instead of snapping. These are the echoes of mental rehearsal, ripples of imagined responses that shape reality. And over time, the rehearsed you becomes the lived you. Not because you willed it into being, but because you walked beside it until the lines between imagining and being began to blur, until your body forgot it was only practice, until your nervous system made a new normal. Even now, as you lie still, your brain is rehearsing, not always in clear pictures, sometimes just in tone, in mood, in a felt sense of direction, like the faint outline of a map appearing in fog, a gentle leaning toward peace, a readiness for connection, a loosening around fear. This is why visualization heals, not because it solves every pain, but because it shifts the internal environment in which pain is held. It offers a breath of space, a hint of alternative, a whisper of, maybe it could go this way instead. And sometimes that whisper is enough to reroute an entire storm. In therapy rooms, athletes' locker rooms, recovery beds, classrooms, meditation mats, people practice not just with their hands or feet, but with their minds. And each visualization, each imagined scene, lays a brick in the pathway of potential. Each imagined outcome rehearses the nervous system for what might come. Each mental step becomes a future step more possible. There is humility in this, because not all things imagined will unfold, not all outcomes rehearsed will arrive, but many will, and even when they don't, the rehearsal gives you something invaluable. Readiness, inner alignment, a self familiar with grace, even when grace is hard to find. You are not manifesting magic, you are practicing presence. You are not bending the world to your will. You are bending your own posture toward possibility. You are learning to show up for yourself before the moment demands it. And in that quiet preparation, you build trust in your own becoming. So tonight, as you prepare for rest, you can let your mind rehearse gently. No pressure, no perfection. Just a soft imagining of how you hope to move through the world tomorrow. A word you want to speak. A pause you hope to hold, a door you might open. Let these thoughts play through like scenes in a film. Let your body feel them as if they are already real. And then let them go. Trust they have done their work. Trust your nervous system has heard. Trust your imagined self is already walking ahead, clearing brush, smoothing stones, lighting lanterns. Because rehearsal is not control. It is cooperation. It is your way of saying, I am here, I am willing, I am ready to meet what comes next with more grace than before. And maybe, just maybe, you're not rehearsing alone. Maybe every gentle practice you offer yourself sends a signal to others too. Maybe someone else, in their quiet room, is rehearsing kindness. And maybe your futures, still hidden, are walking toward each other even now. You breathe, you release. And in the space just before sleep you wonder, not with urgency, but with soft hope, what your imagined self might be preparing you for next. You breathe in slowly, and in the quiet that follows you feel it, the hush of potential. A blankness that isn't empty but full of invitation. The still air of a canvas yet untouched. And in that gentle space something stirs, an image, a feeling, a whisper of colour rising from within. Your mind, quiet though it seems, is already painting. You may not hold a brush in your hand, but your thoughts are strokes just the same. Soft arcs of memory, bold sweeps of longing, delicate lines of hope. Each one leaves its trace. Each one becomes part of the picture you carry inside. This inner landscape shifts with every new thought, every remembered dream, every quiet emotion that passes like weather across your inner sky. The mind is not static. It is a meadow that reshapes itself as you walk, a sea that responds to the moonlight of attention, a canvas that paints itself, and you, dreamer, are both the artist and the art. When you imagine strength, a line is drawn. When you picture peace, the tones deepen. When you allow joy to rise, even briefly, a golden warmth spreads across the scene. These are not fantasies, these are foundations. What you imagine is not merely pretend, it is practice, it is preparation, it is blueprint and scaffolding and seed. Your brain, soft and shifting, responds. Neurons fire not just in reaction to what is real, but in rehearsal for what could be. It cannot always. Tell the difference between lived experience and vivid thought. That is the miracle. That is the invitation. That is the brush in your hand. You remember a time when you felt helpless, and your chest tightens. The mind paints fast in pain. But then, you recall a moment of laughter, and the light returns. The palette changes. The nervous system responds. Your body is part of this painting too. Imagination speaks in images, it speaks in metaphor, and your nervous system listens. This is why a single thought can open the chest like a window, letting in air. This is why a mental image of safety can lower the heart rate, slow the breath, bring tears to eyes. Because the body believes. It responds to what it is shown. So what are you showing it tonight? Close your eyes for a moment and picture a place that feels safe. Not perfect, just safe. It could be a forest path, or a quiet kitchen, or a memory from childhood. Let it unfold slowly. Let it rise not in detail, but in feeling. Let the colours be warm. Let the air feel soft. Now imagine yourself there. Not as you wish to be, but as you are. Tired perhaps, unsure, but still willing, still breathing, still present. You're not erasing the hard things, you're not denying the truth. You are simply offering your nervous system another version, a gentler one it can rest in, and that is enough. Science calls this mental simulation, visualization, neural rehearsal. It shows up in therapy, in sports, in healing. But you do not need a study to know this. You have felt it. You have lived it. You have already walked through moments that were softened not by fact, but by the frame you placed around them. You have survived nights made easier by imagining morning. You have endured fear by picturing its end. You have met pain with a memory of love, and somehow that changed something real. The canvas shifts again. There is a reason children draw before they write, a reason we dream in images, not spreadsheets. A reason metaphors move us more than measurements. The brain is a storyteller, a painter, a composer of inner symphonies, and the story it tells most often is the one it comes to believe. So tonight, perhaps you tell it a different story, not one of perfection or certainty, but one of presence, of trying, of kindness. You picture yourself waking tomorrow not with everything solved, but with softness in your step. You imagine reaching for water, stretching your arms, greeting the day not with dread but with curiosity. And just like that, a path is drawn. It does not matter if you walk it tomorrow. What matters is that it now exists, because that is how the brain learns. Not just through repetition, but through representation. You show it something kind, and it begins to expect kindness. You offer it an image of connection, and it begins to crave connection. You hold up a mirror of strength, and it begins to find strength in your bones. This is not delusion. This is design, and you are the designer. The canvas stretches behind you and before you, every color available, every texture possible. You are allowed to repaint, to change your mind, to add new strokes where once there were only shadows. You are allowed to become. You think of the time someone offered you a picture of yourself you hadn't yet imagined. A teacher who saw your spark, a friend who spoke of your courage, a stranger who smiled as if you mattered. Those were brush strokes too, and you carry them still. You're not painting alone. Your canvas touches others. Their dreams bleed softly into yours. Their courage spills into your sky, and yours into theirs. So you imagine gently. You imagine healing, not because it erases hurt, but because it shows the body a path forward. You imagine peace, not to deny the chaos, but to create a resting place within it. You imagine joy, even when sorrow sits nearby, because both can belong, and the painting expands. It becomes less about what it looks like, and more about what it holds, the emotion it carries, the invitation it offers. You don't need to be a master. You don't need to know the final scene. You just need to keep painting, one breath at a time, one thought at a time, one stroke of grace each evening before sleep. Because even in darkness the canvas remains. Even in stillness the colours wait. Even in fear the hand can move. And just before rest overtakes you, you imagine one final thing. Not a goal, not a victory, but a gesture. A simple one. A reaching out. A hand extended to someone else who is also painting in the dark. Someone who might need your light. Someone who, unknown to you, has already helped colour your world. You smile. The painting is not done, but it is beautiful already. And as your breath slows, and your thoughts soften, you wonder, not with pressure, but with possibility, what image might come next, and who it might help you become. The brush has not been set down. The canvas is still warm with colour. Somewhere in the quiet hum beneath your thoughts, something continues to form. You're not finished. You're still unfolding, and so you lie there breathing softly as the next image begins to take shape, not with sharp edges or clear lines, but as a feeling first, a warmth in your chest, a flicker behind your eyes, a sensation that something new is being stirred, not by the world outside you, but by the world you are building inside. What you imagine, you become, not in a way that denies reality, but in a way that partners with it. Your thoughts are not bricks. They are blueprints. They do not make the walls, they draw the outlines. Your actions are what fills in the form, but your imagination lays the first stone. So tonight, as you drift between wakefulness and sleep, you begin to see the quiet truth. The stories you tell yourself are not just stories. They are scaffolding. They are structure. They are the early architecture of your becoming. You picture yourself calm, and a little more calmness enters you. You picture yourself brave, and something inside straightens. You picture yourself gentle, and your voice softens even in the dark. This is not magic. It is memory, formed ahead of time. The brain, when it imagines, activates many of the same regions as when it acts. Visualize lifting your hand, and your motor cortex sparks as if you had. Picture speaking with courage, and your nervous system rehearses the steadiness you will later call your own. Imagination is not escape. It is creation. The mind rehearses, the heart follows, and the body over time remembers. This is how dreams become habits, how hope becomes habit, how a picture you hold long enough begins to tint your days. You have done this already countless times. You imagined what it would feel like to begin, to walk a different path, to hold a boundary, to offer love. And even when the path wobbled, even when the voice trembled, something from that imagined moment remained. A trace, a shape, a whisper of strength. The person you're meeting now is not random. They are the product of all those rehearsals, all those silent conversations you had with yourself before the world ever heard you. The inner monologue shaped the outer world, and it continues, right now. Because imagination is not just what you do at night, under blankets, in quiet moments. It is the constant background music of your life. The images you hold, consciously or not, become the expectations you live into. So if you imagine yourself unwanted, you might walk more softly, speak less boldly. If you imagine yourself incapable, you might not try. But if you imagine yourself whole, even if just for a second, something deep inside lifts its head. Something believes, and belief is a powerful sculptor. Not belief in perfection, not belief in never falling, but belief that something inside you matters, belief that the path is worth walking, belief that the person you picture is not a fantasy, but a seed. Seeds are small, quiet. They do not shout, but given light and care and patience, they become forests. So you close your eyes again, not to disappear, but to draw, to paint, to whisper into the clay of your own becoming. You imagine waking tomorrow with ease. You imagine meeting difficulty with softness. You imagine saying what needs to be said, not for applause, but for alignment. And your mind listens. It begins to prepare. It rehearses tone. It gathers breath. It starts to tilt your path. You're not tricking yourself. You're training yourself. The future version of you, the one you imagine, is walking just ahead. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear their voice. They do not command. They do not criticize. They simply say, "This way, come, I've made a space for you." You follow. And in that following, you change. Because change is not a single loud act. It is the slow shifting of attention, the redirection of thought, the quiet repetition of an inner image until it feels less like fiction and more like memory. You've already practiced sadness, fear, and self-doubt, not on purpose, but through repetition. And repetition writes truth into the body. So now, gently, you begin to repeat something else. You imagine kindness. You imagine strength. You imagine belonging, not because it is guaranteed, but because it is possible. And in the quiet space of night, with no one watching, you see yourself becoming. There is no applause here, no test, only breath, only heartbeat, only the quiet return to an image that softens you. That image does not have to be grand. It does not need to win awards or change the world. It only needs to feel true to you. A small act, a loving gesture, a boundary held, a voice spoken, a presence kept. You imagine these things, and the body stores them. The nervous system is like a forest. It grows in the direction of what is walked. The more often you imagine safety, the easier it is for your body to relax. The more you picture joy, the more your chemistry prepares for it. This is not false hope. It is neural rehearsal. It is biology bending toward belief. You've done this before without knowing. That moment you practiced a conversation before it happened. That second you pictured a smile before you smiled. That whisper of confidence you imagined when the room fell silent. That was imagination speaking, and it shaped you. So now you practice with intention. You imagine yourself reaching for help and being met. You imagine yourself offering help and being received. You imagine being exactly who you are and feeling enough. Not because every image comes true, but because every image you hold changes something in you. And that change makes space for something new. You imagine walking into a room and feeling peace. You imagine waking with a sense of purpose. You imagine letting go of what no longer serves you, not with anger, but with gentleness. These are not fantasies. These are rehearsals. They are reminders. They are invitations. And as you return to them, night after night, breath after breath, they become reference points. They become anchors. They become part of your identity. The self you are sculpting through imagination is not separate from you. It is you ahead of time. And so you imagine, not to avoid life, but to meet it more fully. You picture healing, not as an endpoint, but as a movement, a softening, a remembering. You picture love, not as perfection, but as presence. You picture tomorrow, not as a test, but as a continuation of tonight's gentle dreaming. And all the while, your brain rewires. Your nervous system adjusts. Your chemistry shifts. The forest of your inner world begins to lean in a new direction. This is not overnight, but it is ongoing. You do not have to see the whole staircase. You only have to imagine the next step. You take it. You imagine forgiveness. You imagine courage. You imagine stillness in a loud world. And in that imagining, your biology prepares. Your breath steadies. Your mind softens. Your heart, unguarded, begins to beat with rhythm again. Not because life is easy, but because you are equipped. Not because you control the world, but because you are learning to co-create with it. You imagine clarity. You imagine connection. You imagine meaning, not from others, but from the life you are slowly colouring in. And all of it starts with a picture, a thought, a whisper, a single image of who you might become. And in that image, the old stories begin to loosen. The sharp lines blur, the critical voices grow faint, and a new story begins to hum beneath the surface. Not one of perfection, not one of certainty, but one of practice, one of presence, one of possibility. And so, as your body settles and your thoughts begin to drift, you imagine yourself rising in the morning, not as someone new, but as someone remembered, the self you've always been becoming. You breathe, you soften, you return to that image again. And just before sleep takes you fully, you wonder, not with pressure, but with quiet trust, who else might be waiting in the self you're still learning to become? The lights of the waking world dim slowly, not all at once. First the chatter softens, then the edges of shape begin to blur. Thought unwinds like a ribbon unravelling from its spool, gently loosening your grip on the present. The world outside fades, but not into emptiness. It fades into something deeper, a place not empty but full of signals, pulses, colours not seen by the eye, but felt by the mind. This is where you go now, not away, but within. Sleep does not silence you, it retunes you. As your breath deepens and your limbs grow still, the surface world recedes and another world stirs to life. Inside you, neurons fire in patterned cascades, bursts of electrical light like starlight sparking across a private cosmos. You do not see it, but your brain glows now like a galaxy in bloom. Each pulse, each tiny electrical flicker is a whisper of meaning, a memory being stored, a feeling being processed, a story being written. The dreaming mind is not a passenger, it is a maker. You imagine dreams as wild, unshaped things, spinning clouds, flying scenes, strange faces. But what unfolds in sleep is a carefully choreographed symphony of meaning. Your brain isn't idle, it is curating, reorganizing, making sense, rehearsing your future, filing your past. It is sweeping the stage for what comes next. And even now, in this softness, you participate. You guide it, quietly, with your thoughts, your wishes, your emotions. What you felt today becomes the pigment. What you believed becomes the brush. You are not watching the dream. You are painting it. In the darkness behind your eyes, entire landscapes unfold, made not of matter, but of metaphor. Rooms appear that never existed. People return who are no longer here. Possibilities dance on neural strings. You may speak languages you don't know, visit places you've never seen, but every corner, every turn is stitched from pieces of you. Dreams do not come from the outside. They are the echoes of your inner universe. Science once thought dreams were meaningless noise, random firings, leftovers of the day, but now we know better. Your brain uses dreaming to consolidate memory, to learn new skills, to regulate emotion. When you rehearse a movement in sleep, your muscles respond the next day with greater ease. When you revisit fear in a dream, your mind reshapes your response to it. Dreams are not just experience, they are integration. Your mind in sleep becomes a lab of becoming. In this private lab, there are no observers but you, no rules but feeling. Here, fear is faced without consequence. Here, courage is grown in imagined soil. You try on lives, you step into new roles, and something inside you learns, remembers, changes. You wake not only rested but reprogrammed, because dreaming is not escape, it is evolution. You might not recall the scenes clearly, they slip away like water between fingers, but the residue remains, a feeling, a clarity, a knowing, and that knowing threads itself into your waking life, shaping how you meet the day, even if you cannot name why. Sleep is the gate, dreaming is the path. You have walked it countless times, through childhood, through heartbreak, through change. It carried you when waking life was too sharp. It lifted you when you needed lightness. It held you in times when nothing else could. And even when you fought sleep, still it came, gently, faithfully, like the tide, like breath. You might not have realized you were dreaming yourself forward, but you were, and tonight you do it again. In your sleep, your brain replays sounds, images, emotions. It maps them onto deeper structures. It links new thoughts to older wisdom. It finds unexpected patterns. You are solving puzzles without knowing it. You're designing futures in the dark. And though your body lies still, your inner self moves swiftly, across forests of possibility, through tunnels of memory, along bridges of hope. You're not alone in this landscape. The dream self, the one you've been becoming, is here too, quietly shaping the journey. She remembers what you need. He carries what you've forgotten. They whisper what you're ready to hear, and you listen without ears. You see without eyes. You know without proof. What an extraordinary thing to sleep and yet to create. We often think of creation as active, loud, visible, but much of what becomes real begins invisibly. Trees root in darkness, stars are born in silence, and you, your becoming, is no different. As you dream, your mind draws maps that tomorrow will follow. What you believe in sleep you begin to act on in waking. What you heal in dreams becomes scar tissue you no longer have to carry. You do not just rest, you realign, and perhaps most tender of all, you reconnect. In your dreams you are not bound by time. You may revisit a childhood room and find comfort. You may glimpse a future self and feel peace. You may meet a loved one long gone and say what waking would not allow. These are not hallucinations, these are communications. The brain reaching across its own timescape to make you whole. Healing happens here, quietly, gently. In REM sleep, where dreams are richest, your amygdala lights up, processing emotion. Your motor cortex rehearses movement. Your hippocampus files memory. It is a ballet of becoming, all without a single conscious command. Because your deeper self already knows what to do, and so you drift. Through images, through stories, through meanings not yet spoken aloud, and the neurons whisper their symphony. They pulse in rhythm with your breath. They hum with the charge of creativity. They glow like a constellation not yet charted. Your mind, dear dreamer, is a sky unending, and within it you are the stargazer and the star, the observer and the observed, the author and the ink. You write your way forward, each dream a sentence, each thought a theme. This is not fantasy. It is neuroplasticity. It is the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself, to change based on experience, even imagined experience. You rehearse kindness in dreams, and your waking self softens. You picture courage, and your brain learns its rhythm. You fall, you rise, you forgive, all in a night, and wake lighter, freer, more open to try again. What you imagine you become, even here, especially here. And as your breath finds its slow, steady rhythm, you trust this. You do not need to guide the dream. You only need to allow it. Your brain will find its way, your heart will follow. The dreaming universe within you does not sleep. It expands. It receives your questions, even the ones you have no words for. It shapes responses in symbol, in motion, in color. It reminds you of what matters, of who you are becoming, and you are becoming, always. Not in a way that denies who you are now, but in a way that honors it, that says, this is a foundation, this is a beginning, this is the dawn before tomorrow. Your mind does not close its eyes when you do, it opens them wider, and in this deepening silence, you sense something vast, something that has always been here, a part of you, the place from which all thought springs. It is not loud, it is not demanding, but it is steady, it is wise, it is ready. You breathe once more, your body sleeps, but your spirit dreams. Thank you for listening, dear dreamer. You've traveled gently through thoughts and galaxies, through emotion and imagination, through the quiet wonder of your own mind. As the final echo fades and the night deepens around you, remember, your dreams are not small things. They are maps. Stay tuned for more journeys still to come. Until then, rest well. Good night. And if this softened the edges of your day, don't forget to like, subscribe, and return whenever you need a place to breathe.